Blizzard Entertainment released Starcraft in the spring of 1998. Originally thought to be a mere futuristic adaptation of their hit real-time strategy game Warcraft, Starcraft possessed a number of unique traits that would elevate it to a legendary level of success and be considered one of the most significant games in the genre 12 years after its release.
Starcraft, the original, was significant for two reasons. One reason from a game design perspective was the fact that you had these three completely unique races that had different modes of play, different strategies involved with them, and to my knowledge that's not something that had ever been attempted before.
While Blizzard maintained their mantra of keeping the game as simple as possible when developing Starcraft, it was groundbreaking in a single significant way. While other real-time strategy games at the time pitted two fairly similar factions against one another, Starcraft placed three races against each other in battle, each having a different strategy and play style, forcing players to adapt and think on their feet.
That was really, at the time, what we felt was innovative too. I mean, it was sort of like our big innovation. There was some distinct ways Metzen and the story guys had come up with a great story and world, and hey, you know what, we can really support this triangle.
Well, the original Starcraft was such an amazing experience, such a polished, excellent game, you know, that sort of opened up, you know, for me as a player, you know, what real-time strategy could really be. That you could have these races, they're so completely different from one another that you're almost playing a completely different game when you sit down to play a new race. It was so exciting. I remember very distinctly playing this when I was working at Activision at the time, and you know, I couldn't believe, having barely mastered one race, I suddenly realized there's units I'm not using in this race, and there's two more races I haven't even begun to touch yet, let alone understand how it works when I have different matchups, right? It was such an intense experience to sort of realize how deep the gameplay experience really was. And I think that's why we're seeing original StarCraft still played to this day.
The other thing that really made StarCraft unique was the storyline. To have a storyline that played out throughout the entire game, allowing you to play these different races and to feel an emotional attachment to the characters was also something that really hadn't been done.
This unique feature of StarCraft, along with a carefully crafted system of balancing each side, would make StarCraft become one of the most popular and significant multiplayer games ever made. Despite its simple graphics and dated gameplay, StarCraft continues to be very popular with online gamers 12 years later, and draws some of the most skilled gamers around the globe to compete in televised tournaments.
I don't know if anybody could have predicted how big the original StarCraft was going to become. I mean, there may have been some really visionary people who could look at it and say, oh my God, I get it. This is going to be the most amazing thing. I don't think Blizzard understood what they were making at the time. I don't think they understood you know, what was going on. I think it certainly would have been paralyzing if they'd understood how big this could have been. You know, as always, Blizzard was just trying to make the best game they knew how to make, and then they would have to sort of wait and see what the reaction was. And it was, I think, shocking to everyone.
Up to the last minute, there were people actually being told, pencils down, this test is over. I mean, by Alan Adham, I remember that distinctly happening. I've heard the story several times by developers that are working on StarCraft 2 today of how that happened, and we're kind of heading that way now. We will go forever, ultimately, and so at some point you have to say, this is good, this is great, we love this, we're having a good time with it, and we're there with StarCraft 2. But yeah, in StarCraft 1, I definitely remember it's like, you can't take it from me, and they're pulling it out of people's fingers are snapping as they pull it out.
We had been in development for quite a long time. We were in crunch phase, where basically, you know, the programmers are working down their list of bugs, and we had a date set that we were shooting for the Gold Master, and it was non-stop gameplay trying to nail down those final bugs to where you basically stay up all night and all you're doing is playing the game. And when you do close your eyes and get some sleep, you're actually dreaming about the game.
Well, I think the thing about the original StarCraft was it was such a high-quality experience, right? It was a little bit bigger than other games at the time. Most other games were running only 2 races, and this was running 3. But since then, we've seen games with many more races than 3 races that have not necessarily eclipsed StarCraft, you know, as time has gone by. So I don't think it was about the size of the game. I don't think it was about even the quality of the art, which I think looked pretty good at the time, but it wasn't necessarily the best looking game even at the time, let alone now, right, where it's certainly not the best looking game available today. I think it was about the quality of this experience. It was about the fact that the balance was so well done, that the gameplay choices were so tightly designed. The design team really did a great job with that original game, and it's given it the legs to continue, not only against its competitors at the time, but has allowed it to continue to compete for years and years and years to come.